We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody to the Brunswick County Board of Education meeting for the month of December 2021. We'll begin with a moment of silence, and then we'll have the presentation of colors and the pledge of ROTC, and they are led by Cadet Tristan Leonard. Please stand. Thank you.
Color guard, hold. Post, post. Ready, front. Present, arms. You will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. About, face. Forward, march.
The organizational meeting of the Board of Education has been called to order. We have a quorum present. One of the purposes of this meeting is the election of board officers. The first order of business is the election of the chairman. Just as a reminder, nominations do not require a second, and no motion is needed to close the nomination. At this time, do I hear nominations for the office of board chair?
Dr. Oates, I would like to nominate Steve Barger as board chair.
Mr. Barger, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations for the chair? If there are no other nominations for the position of chair, we will call for a vote. All in favor of Mr. Stephen Barger as board chair, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Let the record show that Mr. Stephen Barger is duly nominated and elected as the chair of the Brunswick County Board of Education for a one-year term by unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, and thank you to my fellow board members. Do I hear any nominations for vice chair of the Brunswick County Board of Education?
I nominate Robin Moffitt.
Mr. Robinson has nominated Robin Moffitt. Robin, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Is there any other nominations for vice chair?
I was going to put up Mr. Lemon.
Mr. Benton has nominated Mr. Lemon. Mr. Lemon, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lemon accepts the nomination. We will call a vote for both nominees, starting with Ms. Moffitt. So all in favor of Ms. Moffitt assuming the role of Vice Chairman of the Board of Education, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and all members in favor of Mr. Lemon assuming the role of Vice Chair of the Board of Education, say aye.
Aye.
3 votes for Ms. Moffett and 2 votes for Mr. Lemon. And Ms. Moffett is now the duly elected Vice Chair of the Brunswick County Board of Education. All right, we're going to move on to the approval of the regular agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the regular agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Lemon.
Mr. Barger, at one point, I would like to possibly discuss, bring up some issues about the quarantines, the exposures, and the 10%. If we could just discuss that tonight, possibly, and get some numbers.
I believe it's an
I
action.
believe it's action item number 1, which is Senate Bill
Okay.
654.
Perfect.
We have a motion on the table
Yes.
to accept the agenda as it's written by Mr. Lemon. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Benton. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, and now we're on to public address. Before we call the first speaker, if we could yield to Mr. Green to read the rules, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It appears we have listed 6 speakers this evening. I'm reading from policy, Board Policy Number 2310, which states that presentations will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Discussions regarding particular individual employees, litigation, student records, or other matters may be required to be kept confidential and may not be discussed in open forum setting. The chairman will have the responsibility to determine matters of discussion that may be inappropriate and rule the speaker out of order if necessary. So each speaker will be given 3 minutes. I will let the speaker know when approximately 15 seconds remain in that speaker's allotted time. So the first speaker is Mr. Harmati.
I'm going to be talking about the second part of the soul I started last month. So this is the soul. In the beginning, the Word existed. The Word was God. God used His Word to create the universe. God commanded, let there be light, let there be a dome, let there be land, let there be plants and animals. Then God said, we will make human beings in our image. He created them male and female. He blessed them and commanded them to have many children. God created our being, which is our spirit, our soul, and our body. The spirit was created to communicate with God and to worship Him. The soul gives life to the body. And humans are the only ones who have creative power. There are 2 roads the soul can travel. It can take the easy road that leads to destruction. It could take the harder road that leads to eternal life with God. Many people take the easy road. People on the easy road say evolution is the right road to travel. To them, our being originated in pre-existing species and are modified over time. When the body dies, it returns to dust. The soul of these people are separated from God forever and ever. Isaac Newton's law of gravity and motion indicates that there is an intelligent designer of the universe known as God, who created all things. God says, I created you in my image. I love you, John 3:16. And the soul will live with me forever and ever. American founders in the Constitution also said that our inalienable rights come from God. The soul has 10 functions. First is love, emotion, kindness, justice, judgment, anger, understanding, intelligence, reason, and will. And the reason why this is important for the school board and for all school teachers is this is the kind of soul you're creating. This individual is going to have all these attributes of love, anger, hate, understanding, knowledge of the Constitution, knowledge of American history, knowledge of anything. And if you give them the wrong information, they're going to have the wrong knowledge. And they're going to hate their family, they're going to hate their parents, they're going to hate America and their country, and they hate everything. So we don't want to do that. We want to have people that love their family, love their country, love their parents, and things like that. So that's basically it. Next month.
Mr. Harbody, you have 15 seconds left.
Thank you. Next month, I'm going to talk about the lost soul and the lost coin, and this continue on series, it's all going to add up. You'll see at the end, whenever the end comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lou. Our next speaker is Sarah Knox.
So I'm here tonight to express my concern about the short staff that's going on in all of our schools. Like most parents, I was excited about this school year where they can start learning in person. I have two sons that attend Bolivia Elementary School. The first thing I noticed this year is there was a ton of shortage of teacher assistants at Bolivia Elementary School. I learned that a lot of them left due to being required to drive a bus route. My oldest son spends his time between an exceptional class and a general ed class. His exceptional class consists of one EC teacher and two teacher assistants. As of September, both teacher assistants have been out. They had to go on leave. One of them will be returning. And then as of December 1st, he lost his EC teacher who he's had for 2 years. The principal and teachers have tried to work together to do coverage, but there were days that my son wasn't able to go to his enhancements or his general ed class. And we're not the only school that has lost EC teachers, which I'm sure you guys are aware of. Right now, there are 5 job postings for exceptional teachers. And it's not just EC staff, like South Brunswick High has an English teacher on leave where kids are having to do all their work on a Chromebook. They're not really getting any person instruction. All they do is have a sub over the class. I know you guys don't deal with a lot of day-to-day, but this is what's going on in our schools. And I think we've all learned that a lot of kids do not do good with remote learning. I know there's going to be a job fair tomorrow, and there's an offering of a $5,000 sign-on bonus for an EC teacher or a math teacher. There's nothing for teacher assistants, and we are definitely really short. I don't know if you've ever been into an EC class, but you have to have teacher assistants in there. Those kids need help going to classrooms, dealing with behavior issues, and doing their work. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that. I know that a lot of our Brunswick County school employees will receive the $1,500 this month for their 2021 school year by using the elementary, secondary school emergency relief programs. I know a lot of staff that are there are worn out, they're stretched out, they're having to run 2 different classes, they're having to pull kids and stuff. I know that hiring is a huge issue for everywhere in this county, but to me, it's just not acceptable to be going on in our schools. I mean, I know it's tough, but we're gonna lose our staff that we have now if we don't take care of them and do our best with them and support them in the way that we need to, especially our exceptional children, because I shouldn't have to worry about leaving work because I need to take my kid to a class because there's not enough staff. So that's basically just what I wanted to touch on. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kelsey Leeper.
I would like to talk about the revision of early college students not able to join sports at public high schools. And so I'm an 11th grader right now at early college, and I have with me Coach Nina McPherson from South Brunswick High School swim team. Early college is known for helping their students succeed for the future and rather be in the workforce, either it be four-year university or the workforce for after high school. One thing they're not helping us do is be able to succeed as a student athlete. Becoming a student athlete is very beneficial because it is teaching the student how to balance in school life and in sports. For myself, being a student athlete taught me many things. In my freshman year, it was very rocky in the beginning, but after I had a few weeks of learning, understood what habits were good and which were bad. And I had to plan every day according to homework, classes, and also swim practice. Early college was a great place to help me succeed in this. They taught me the things that helped you plan and not procrastinate. And the past 3 years, I have become easier and easier in my school life and my student life. This is all because of early college. Many students don't want to come to early college because they believe that they won't be able to do sports teams and they rather do sports than school. For me, it was more education. But kids today have the chance to still stay in this county and then to go over to Hanover or Hoggard and be in the IB program or Lyceum program, and they can still be on sports teams. Because of this, we could be losing amazing students that excel both in the classes and in sports. Our school sent out an email about November 2nd asking if we could join the robotics club at West Brunswick. I think it is unfair that we are allowed to join a club at West Brunswick, but we're not allowed to join a sports team, even though it takes the same amount of time in our day and the same amount of work ethic. So this should not be a rule because you think early college students do not have the time to add additional curricular activities to their curriculum right now. We are early college students because we excel in everything that we do, and we want our future to look bright in every aspect. As I am coming into my senior year, I am looking at colleges and reaching out to recruiters and seeing how I could be a potential student athlete. Recruiters rather see me in high competition, high school swim meets than they would see my times in an email. And so myself and others do not have this opportunity at early college because of the rules stated. I am here today to hopefully make this a change and set a precedent for future early college students and welcoming student athletes at early college. This will make early college even better than it already is, and we have more representation through the county or even the state if the rule passes. Thank you for your time, and please remember, for every student athlete deserves a recognition in their sport as they do in the classroom.
Thank you. Joan Hall.
Good evening, it's me again.
Good evening.
Today is Pearl Harbor Day. Our country was attacked, and the citizens united to fight for our freedoms. Now our schools are under attack, and we again must unite for our parents and for our children's rights. We want our students to learn about Pearl Harbor and the men and the women that died so that we can live. I have been coming to the board meetings since May. The First Amendment of the Constitution gives us the right of the people to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Brunswick County citizens have presented grievances to the committee with no public response. My first topic was CRT and its new name, Social Emotional Learning. What are you doing to keep this out of the schools? Second, I talked about surveys in schools for data collection. Parents need to know about these surveys. I have heard they are still being used. Are they? In August, the topic was parents' rights. What are you doing to keep parents informed? Are you going to PTA meetings? Or is there a better question, do we have parent-teacher associations? And if we don't, why not? At the October meeting, you couldn't make a decision to add one additional resource officer. Did you add one? I am very concerned about the social services in the schools. Are these students still attending classes with aggressive behavior? December's question to you. What percent of our students are now passing, and what percent are failing? With North Carolina schools ranked 38th in the country, do we really want to give teachers and students extra days off? And I'm referring to wellness days. Next year, I will be here again, and maybe, I pray, that in 2022, you will answer all or some of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Starn.
Good evening. My name is Brian Starn. I spoke to you last month about the need for parent involvement in making decisions that involve our children. What I failed to realize last month after you voted to remove the mask mandate is that you left in place a 10% quarantine rule that has nothing to do with science or protecting our children. I also didn't realize that the NC Toolkit requires you to vote every month based on how many cases of COVID were reported in the previous month. So tonight, I'm here to tell you that by voting to mask and test our children, based on false science and false numbers from the PCR test that the CDC themselves has said it cannot tell the difference between influenza A, B, COVID, or the common cold is criminal. Ask yourself, how in 2019 were there 35 million influenza cases? Yet since March of 2020, there's only been reported 1,822. This is from the CDC. Anyone have an answer? I doubt it. Each of you are elected by the parents, not by the health department or the CDC. Fun fact, the CDC owns 56 vaccine patents and receives 45% of its funding from those patents. Did any of you know that? It's time to wake up and realize you are destroying our children's lives with this nonsense. Federal law Title 21 U.S.C. 360 BBB of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act states products granted emergency authorization usage must inform individuals from the product is administered are informed of the significant known and potential benefits and risks, keywords, risks of such use and of the extent of which such benefits and risks are unknown, and the option to accept or refuse administration of the product, masks, PCR tests, vaccines. The consequences, if any, refusing administration of the product and of the alternatives to the product that are available. Each of you have continued to vote to require masks for testing is in violation of federal law and face potential lawsuits and criminal charges. On top of violating federal law, you have violated your own policy code 2120, Code of Ethics for School Board Members, A1 through 5, B3, and B16. Tonight, I put each of you on notice that if you do not remove all these ridiculous mandates related to COVID, I will pursue legal recourse. Under Policy Code 2116, removal from office by a court of law GS 14-230. You have willfully violated your oath of office for no good reason. Maybe it was out of fear, for money, or political. None of that matters right now, but what does matter is that you acknowledge my complaint under Policy Code 1742/5060, Section C. There have been multiple violations of board policy and law. Upon acknowledgement under Policy 2330, you have a vote to add this item to the agenda. After this has been added to the agenda, you vote under 2420 to repeal all mandates related to COVID and allow us, the parents and students, to decide what is in the best interest of our children's health. Mr. Superintendent, you also have the ability to stop these unlawful mandates that this board has forced upon our children under Policy Code 2440. You can rescind these mandates due to them violating federal law with the force of vote. Thank you.
Thank you. David Little.
I'm here also because of this 10% rule. The last time that I came, we spoke about the mask issue, and the first meeting that I attended, it was a great disappointment. The board sent out a survey asking the parents and the staff what they would like implemented in this county pertaining to face coverings. Those results were made public. The county overwhelmingly wanted the right to choose what health measures are forced upon their children. Not only that, but the parents stood in front of you that very day and told you that they wanted the right, their American rights, to choose and to decide what they did with the health and well-being of their children, which is a conversation that we should not even be having. You had the data from the vote, you listened to the parents, and you totally disregarded the community's desire. It was a slap in our face. It really was. Then to make matters worse, we were asked to leave. The next meeting, even more restrictions were put upon us and the parents and the citizens of this county regarding the attendance of that very next meeting. I just want to remind everybody, this is America. Now, myself, along with 85% of the people in this county, this is just me guessing, would love nothing more than to see every one of you that have opposed us, forced masks on our children, and created unnecessary hostile learning environments to just step down tonight. This 10% thing's got to go. Masks should be our choice. You know what? Vaccines should be our choice. We're losing all faith in you guys. We have no faith in the Board of Education. You blindly follow information from state and federal governments without questioning it, and then you force it upon our children, and you need to stop it. You blindly force our kids to wear masks. What if the CDC orders you to give every child a vaccine while they're in your care at our schools? Are you going to do it? Answer it. Are you going to do it? I mean, you don't want to answer it. The very data you are producing now shows how the mask had no impact on the spread. September, week of 13th, this is from your website, total positive cases 188, in the height of your communist mask mandate. The last date that you have on your website is December 6th, total positive cases 86. Now this is the height of cold and flu season after Thanksgiving where nobody wears a mask, and I'm proud and I'm happy to see that none of you agree masks work because you're not wearing any, so thank you for that. Masking does not work. You need to do some research on your own. You need to get your head out of government policies and follow the science. Cloth masks that kids fiddle with all day long, up and down, they don't work. They're useless. And in closing, you're supposed to be concerned about educating our children. And let's be honest, there's not a lot of that been happening for almost 2 years. As educators, you look ridiculous. You're running around after masks, and now you're running around after hats and all this other unnecessary stuff. Here's the thing. COVID is here to stay. We must learn to live with it. We don't have to learn to live with you guys. You can step down.
I just wanted to quickly cover something here. For CRT, this was the first county in the country to ban CRT in our schools. So I don't know who's missed that. SEL, we've had a committee. We also had approved those SRO positions. And so I just wanted to clarify that all of those things did happen. We do have a PAC team at every school and a county PAC team that was put in place under this board. So I just wanted to make sure we clarified those items, and we did cover vaccines at committee meetings, that we were not supportive of any kind of vaccine mandates on our employees or students. So I mean, all of those items were covered by the board and have been addressed. I just don't know if the meetings weren't watched or what's going on, but I do want to just say that those were addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Benton. Mr. Siemens, board salutes. Good evening.
Drawer of surprises. We love talking about the positive stuff here. So first up, we've got a special award that our child nutrition. We know child nutrition has had challenges over the pandemic, from supply shortages to staffing shortages, and all this time, the BCS child nutrition team has been right there in it, and the state and feds are recognizing it. I start this off, though, with a little side of humor. Why did the student eat his homework? Simple, because the teacher said it was a piece of cake. Maybe a dad joke there, and if you like dad jokes, you will love the name of the award given to 4 North Carolina schools for, quote, providing nutritious summer meals featuring locally grown ingredients, soliciting and incorporating student input into menus, and encouraging healthy eating. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, created the Turn Up the Beat Awards. Insert dad joke, I'm a big fan of them, but a play on words there, the Turn Up the Beat Awards. It's to showcase the summer nutrition programs that go above and beyond to ensure that children are receiving high-quality meals that are both nutritious and appetizing. Awards are given at 3 levels: gold, silver, and bronze. Ladies and gentlemen, the Brunswick County Schools Child Nutrition Department just received the silver state level Turn Up the Beat Award from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and the United States Department of Agriculture. We are joined by some of our child nutrition folks. Could you stand, please? Could you come join us up here? Please? Ladies and gentlemen, this is just a few of, you see the camaraderie here? This is a few of our rock stars who have made this the best of the pandemic and the challenges. And it is just amazing what y'all have done at the state level and the federal level recognizes it too. So one more round of applause.
Thank you, board members. My name's Imer Smith, and I'm the Director of Child Nutrition, and I thank you so much. I've got managers here, assistant director, supervisor, and so we are so blessed that you support our program. We served over 64,000 meals this summer, so we do appreciate everything that you do for us, and we're going to do it again this summer. And we're going to reach for gold, okay? But we're very happy. And if you wouldn't mind, can you take a picture of us? Okay. Okay.
You know what you're going to do next summer? You're going to turn up the beat. This is a fun cruise, so if anybody knows, there are some positions available. Hang out with folks like this. Job fair tomorrow. All right, 3, 2, 1. Thank y'all so much. It's a good day when we get to tell dad jokes at a board meeting, right? All right, so now from staff to students, it is the winter card, the Brunswick County Schools Superintendent's Winter Card Contest. It is complete. We have the 4 winners. Just a little background on this. The Winter Card Review Committee looks at all the entries with no knowledge whatsoever of what student or what school these photos are from. So it's completely anonymous judging. There are 4 age brackets. We're going to begin with K2, K through T. And this, let me find the coordinating, okay. The cards, the picture of the card, but these are the cards. Miss Haley Vault. Where is Haley? She's not here today. Okay. Miss Ryder, will you come join us and accept these cards in her honor? So it's no surprise, yes. Superintendent Oates, it's no surprise that Teresa Ryder, art teacher extraordinaire over at Jessie May Monroe Elementary, is the leader of the pack when it comes to creating beautiful, art-talented students. Oh, there we go. 3, 2, 1. That's a good one. Hold your spot. Hold your spot. Just so happens. Okay, well, but I need you. It says here that Alan Cuevas, could you come join us, Alan, and his teacher, Miss Teresa Ryder. I told you, hold your spot. Okay. Alan, what's going on, brother? How you doing, bud? All right. That's good. So coordinating.
It's very good.
Superintendent Oates. Oh, right.
Look at this.
Alan?
Cute.
Perfect. Congratulations, Alan. Oh, Alan, here you go. These are cards. You can send them to relatives or you can keep them all for yourself. All right, next up, from Leland Middle School. I see her over here. Anella McFadden and teacher Mark Rupnick. Is Mark in the house? No, but we have Anella. Come on down.
Really good.
I know. That's phenomenal.
Wow.
That's phenomenal.
Join Superintendent Dr. Rhodes for a little Kodak moment. All right, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, now, and congratulations.
Really good.
And last but certainly not least, from North Brunswick High School, in grades 9 through 12, we've got Kara Vitolo with teacher Shane Miller. Come join us, guys. Mom, you can come over here now. Come on. You can't get the profile shot. All right, first up, we got to go mom first. There's no 3-minute time. You're good. All right, you got it right here, guys. In 3, 2, 1. A round of applause for all right, that's all my goodies. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siemens. Next up, we have presentations, and the first one is going to be the comprehensive annual report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Members, Superintendent. My name is Adam Sapurk. I'm with Anderson Smith White, the independent audit firm hired to do the audit for Brunswick County Schools for the year ended June 30, 2021. Before you, you should have a copy of the comprehensive annual financial report, as well as a 3-page letter addressed to the board. The contract to hire us to conduct the audit of management is signed by the board chair and approved by the local government commission. So that this letter is addressed, again, to the board, just to let you know that the audit went as planned. We didn't have any difficulties conducting the audit. There were no differences of opinions on application of accounting standards. There were no new accounting standards within these statements. All those have been delayed until 2022. And just the overall timing of the audit went as planned and was finalized on October 27th. These statements have been submitted to the local government commission for their review, but they're backlogged by over a month, so they have not been approved yet. But they're still available to be approved by you and to be presented tonight. So that's, again, the gist of the 3-page letter, and I wanted to go through a couple of pages within this document. I think it stands at, 100 pages even. So there's 100 pages of data here, but to me, there's a couple of pages that I think are the most important. So I was going to go through those, point out a couple of numbers, again, that really highlight some of the key financial data points within these statements. These statements meet all the requirements of GASB, of the Local Government Commission. They're in line with all the financial standards and presentation requirements, and they are difficult to read. When you look through these, there's really almost 2 sets of financial statements with them. There's a net position and fund balance. These are 2 equity accounts, 2 forms of valuing the school system, but we really like to concentrate on the fund balance. That's what management uses to decide budgets. That is the amount that the board has to appropriate in future budgets. When you look at your net position, it includes a lot of assets and even more liabilities that aren't really true liabilities of the board. They include your portion of the pension and post-employment benefit obligations. Again, giant liabilities of the state that you represent less than 1% of, but your little 1% is allocated within these statements and disclosed within these statements and affect your net position. So while you have a giant net position of a positive $6.2 million, that's really not the true financial health of the school system. When we look at your governmental fund balance, that number is $34.3 million. So again, these statements tell the story of both of those numbers, but as you read through them, I really recommend concentrating on whenever you read about the fund balance rather than net position. So if you would turn to page 1 of the actual statements in the financial section, after the Roman numeral sections, the first page I'd like to point out is the independent auditor report. Again, hired to provide our opinion on these financial statements. Page 1 is that report. The bottom of page 1 is the opinion paragraph within that report that basically states that we believe that these financial statements accurately reflect the net position of the school board as of June 30, 2021, and the year-end activity for that year. So again, this is what's considered a clean, unmodified opinion letter. Page 3, there's a couple of financial highlights. I'll point out some of these in the actual statements, but page 3 begins some management discussion and analysis. Again, if you read through there, there will be discussion on the changes in net position, as well as discussion about the changes in fund balance. Again, changes of net position include expenditures or expenses that aren't really expenditures, like depreciation, the change in the pension plan, the change in the post-employment benefits. Those all, again, factor into the net position, and the change in net position really I like to highlight on the fund balance. So if you look at the bullet point number 3 for the financial highlights, Board General Fund reported an increase of $3.7 million in fund balance. Part of that was due to additional COVID-19 resources received to offset the cost of COVID. I think that's one of the main financial highlights throughout these statements, is that addition to fund balance. So when you look at the statements, Exhibit 1, page 11, is the balance sheet for Brunswick County Schools, the entity, where we combined all of your funds, all of these additional assets and liabilities, and it shows the balance sheet as Exhibit 1 for total net position across both governmental and business type activities of $5.9 million, and that's an increase of increase of $28 million from the previous year. You are in the middle of construction, which adds value to the school system in the form of buildings. That value affects net position, again, in a positive manner. Your total fixed assets, your total value of all your assets actually exceeds your liabilities for those net pension and net post-employment benefits, again, by that $6 million number. So a positive net position as of June 30, 2021. Exhibit 3, page 13. Now, this is a balance sheet at the fund level. Ultimately, more important than looking at the first two exhibits, the balance sheet for all your governmental funds, all of them listed here across each column. The first column being your general fund. You look at the bottom of that column, total fund balance as of June 30, 2021, $21.4 million, an increase of $3.7 million from the prior year. Of that $21.4 million of fund balance, $19.7 million is unassigned and available for future appropriations. You have some other categories of fund balance. You have some non-spendable fund balance. Those are assets that are in the form of non-cash, like inventories and prepaids. You can't re-spend those, so those are non-spendable and so separated from the unassigned fund balance. You also have some restricted fund balance in the form of $153,000 of restricted for state statute. State statute does not allow you to appropriate receivables, fund balance caused by receivables. You have to wait till that money is actually received before you can appropriate. So we have to separate an amount equal to your receivables and restrict it for state statute. So that, again, pulls out of the unassigned fund balance. You also have $1 million estimated assigned for the 21-22 budget. That's the assigned for subsequent years' expenditures. So again, that is an estimate for your 2022 usage of fund balance. So that $1 million plus the $19.7 million really make up what's available for appropriating in future budgets. Any questions? Again, to me, that column, this page, probably the most important piece of data within the statements. You also have $4.7 million in your restricted revenue fund. These are programs, state, federal programs, as well as some non-restricted funds, but you can only have one general fund, and so there are some revenue sources in that restricted revenue fund that do not have restrictions, like indirect cost, sales tax refunds, tuition and fees. There's various, again, revenue sources that aren't restricted, but by virtue of being in this special revenue fund, they cannot be considered unassigned fund balance. So of that $4.7 million of fund balance, you have $2.7 million restricted for instructional services. So those are the funds that are restricted for the actual program that they were received in, and $1.9 million assigned for special revenues. That is really kind of the makeup of the what would be considered unassigned fund balance available to appropriate, again, because of use, charging indirect cost of federal programs, refunds, tuition and fees, things that, again, don't have a third-party restriction on. Your capital outlay fund has $6.9 million of fund balance. That's a decrease of $1.5 million. This is made up of mostly hurricane relief usage funds. Several years ago, Hurricane Florence, you received vast amounts of FEMA, insurance, and state funds. The state funds were really provided as a cash flow measure while you did repairs, while you dried out buildings, and to cover you while you filed for all of the insurance and FEMA money that you could get, and any unused money has to be sent back to the state. So when you look at the fund balance within that capital outlay fund, $3.6 million is restricted for either continuing to replace and repair Hurricane Florence damage or to send back to the state. That number went down by $1.9 million this year. So you're using those funds, still making sure that you've recognized all the repairs and spent all that money, but that is restricted for either Hurricane Florence repairs or to be sent back. Leaving the $3.2 million remaining in that capital outlay fund as available for capital outlay expenditures. That went up, that piece of it went up $400,000. So you used $1.9 million of hurricane money, added $400,000 of capital outlay money to get you to that net decrease of 1.5. Those are the main fund balance categories, the main balance sheets for your governmental funds. Exhibit 4, page 15, the income statement for those funds. Again, here it just shows your revenues across the top, expenditures through the middle, and at the towards the bottom of each of these columns, we'll show you that net increase or decrease in fund balance for each of these governmental funds. So you can see there again, close to the bottom, $3.8 million almost added for general, $700,000 for restricted revenue, negative $1.5 million of capital outlay. Then you also have funds at the individual schools. They used $47,000 of their funds, leaving you with $1,362,000 across all your schools. When you look at, how much fund balance is not enough or how much is too much, you kind of look at your total budget for the whole year. When you look at almost $182 million flowing through Brunswick County Schools in 1 year, $30 million, $34 million of fund balance really is only 3 months of coverage. It's very little. You are one of the healthier districts that I work with, but by no means should this fund balance be seen as I believe is excessive. So again, when you're looking at $182 million and only 3 months of fund balance on hand, a lot of districts that we work with this year have added fund balance. There are savings related to COVID-19 for transportation services, utilities, forced vacancies that can't be filled. And so districts across the state are utilizing the federal funds as best they can to provide for the cost of operating in COVID, and also to save and really squirrel away fund balance, because there's going to be a constant future cost related to educating children in this type of environment. The federal funds will eventually stop at some point. Even these ESSER funds, they have their limitations. And so what you have to plan for into 2025, 2026. So again, adding fund balance this year has been a theme across the state. Of the 17 districts I work with, each of my districts have added anywhere from $300,000 to $10 million of fund balance. So again, very common, and your addition is proportionate to your size. Any questions? So aside from your governmental funds, you also have a business type fund, your school food service fund on page 21. Exhibit 7 is a balance sheet for that fund. So now for this fund, net position and fund balance are actually the same number. Business type funds have to be accounted for on the full accrual method. So the cost of fixed assets, the liability for pension and OPEB are directly in this fund. So you have a negative net position in this fund of $285,000. You are certainly not in the red in this fund. In fact, when I look at the financial health of a school food service fund, I like to look at the cash on hand. So at the very top of the balance sheet on page 21, $3.5 million of cash on hand. That's an increase of $800,000 in the current year. I think being able to generate a profit while providing meals in this crazy environment where a lot of those meals had to be delivered at some point, or being provided across abnormal schedules is a real feat and a real sign of a well operated and an efficient child nutrition fund. So across the state, participation in meals are down, but the reimbursement rates are higher through this summer feeding program. So it all became a function, being profitable or not profitable, all a function of how many meals could you get in front of kids. So again, in order to generate $800,000 of cash profit in a year is very commendable to a child nutrition fund. I've seen wide varieties of profit and losses in these funds, and it all boiled down to how aggressive those funds or those districts were about getting food in front of kids. So. There's also, on page 23, a cash flow statement that shows you right in the middle that net increase in cash and cash equivalents of $799,000. After that, there are various schedules, budget versus actual, that I'll show you. We had no budget violations, no reported findings related to your budget. There's footnotes that detail out all of your accounting policies and principles and all of your detail on your various assets, receivables, roll forwards of fixed assets. There's 10 pages discussing the actuarial calculations of the pension and OPEB plans. All of these, again, are found in the footnotes that make up the next 30 pages. There's also, again, various schedules that show budget versus actual of the same funds that we just went over. Again, all of those detailing that there were no budget violations. There is 10 pages of statistical analysis. This is actually a comprehensive annual financial report. The report that we send to the LGC for their review does not have this statistical section in it. So we basically conduct the audit, create a report, send that to the local government commission for their review, and then add the Roman numeral pages at the beginning and the statistical pages here in the middle to create the comprehensive annual financial report. The statistical section gives you 10 years' worth of data on some various metrics, including some county information, financial trends, revenue, debt, your demographics, and operating information. So again, same information provided in the front schedules, but a 10-year comparison. After the statistical section, page 88 starts basically the second part of our audit. Our audit is twofold. It's financial and it is compliance-oriented. Page 88 starts 3 letters, 2 pages each. One of the letters is on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance. That indicates that there were no significant deficiencies and no material weaknesses in internal controls. There are also 2 reports on compliance, one on state compliance and one on federal compliance. Both those noted no findings, and in our opinion, both of those, in all ways, you complied with the compliance requirements for each of the major programs that we audited for federal and state purposes. For federal purposes, we have to audit every federal program at least once every 3 years, and have to get 20% coverage, and have to audit any new federal programs. This year, your federal programs that we audited for compliance were the Child Nutrition Funds, COVID-19 Education Stabilization Funds, which are the CARES, the ESSER, ESSER 2, and the Coronavirus Relief Funds that came through the state. Those were the second year of receiving those, but those were deemed high risk by DPI and have to be audited for compliance every year. So those were the 3 federal programs. On the state side, we audited the State Public School Fund. It makes up 95% of your state funds. It has to be audited every year, as well as your non-cash DPI yellow bus receipts. And that's really all I've got. I think, again, the two main takeaways were the cash and child nutrition and your fund balance in local as the 2 main highlights from this report, as well as, again, no findings, no internal control deficiencies, and overall a well-planned, a well-instituted audit. Ray and her staff, as always, are a pleasure to work with, and got one of the best finance teams in the game. So I appreciate your time, and if there are any questions about anything in this report, I'm happy to answer those. My phone number is at the bottom of each of these letters. Happy to answer that. Questions about these anytime. We do school audits year-round, and I'm available with any questions you have on these statements or on the audit in general.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have the teacher voice, Ms. O'Hara. Good, how are you?
So I recently was able to attend the AIM conference with 9 other amazing leaders in our county. We had a really great representation of all levels. I know Molly shared this with you already, but I thought I would just go over it with you. For the high school, we had our Principal of the Year, Dr. Sullivan, there with us. We also had Jenny Bryan, who was last year's Teacher of the Year and also this year's Regional Teacher of the Year. For the middle school, we had the Assistant Principal at South Brunswick High School, Ms. Heights, and then myself. And then for the elementary schools, we had we had Virginia Williamson Elementary School Principal, Ms. Otto, and then Christina Harden, who is our Elementary School Teacher of the Year. And at the district level, we had Ms. Melissa Quinlan, Dr. Rollison, Ms. White, and then Ms. Damon. She was unfortunately not able to attend, but she's still a part of the team. So AIM stands for Accelerate, Invigorate, and Motivate. And I can say that's really what this conference did. We're excited to continue to work together as a team, even now that we're back from that leadership conference, to work together to support our strategic plan for the district and how it connects back to the state strategic plan. I'd also like to highlight that for our region, we were only one of 3 schools. I put one of 2, but there was actually 2 other counties that brought teachers with them for this leadership team. The other counties didn't have any teachers on that team. We had 4, and the other schools only had 1 teacher. I think that says a lot about where our county is going and what we're doing, and that the importance of having teachers as leaders in that communication piece between the district and the schools, and that important role that teachers have. I'd also like to touch upon a couple of the sessions that I went to. This first session has a really long title. Dr. Sullivan actually was at that same session, and it was called Dramatically Improving Student Achievement and Attendance Through Innovative Implementation of Restorative Discipline Practices. Yes, that's one big, long title. As our Teacher of the Year, this year I really wanted to focus on attendance, and that's what made me want to go to this session. And first of all, I want to kind of explain what restorative discipline means. And it says, restorative discipline is a whole school relational approach to building school climate and addressing student behavior that fosters belonging over exclusion, social engagement over control, and meaningful accountability over punishment. And the one quote that they shared that really stuck out with me was, if you are the same school you've always been, then nothing will change. And I really think that's where we're going as a district, is really improving our schools. And another statement that they made was, schools must be the best part of a student's day. And that really resonated with me, because the students are with us at least 8 hours, if not more, if they're in clubs and sports. That really should be the best time of their lives, and also during that day. They should be happy there. They should be loved. They should feel important. They should feel supported. I don't know why that just resonated with me. The core values of this practice are improve attitudes, not just with teachers, but everybody involved, build relationships and respect, get buy-in from everybody involved, embrace clarity, ignite, and show passion. And then they talked about the how, and I thought this was very powerful, because when I wrote these down, the things that they stated, oh, thank you. Did you switch that for me? Thank you. I'm not very good at always multitasking sometimes, so I apologize. A lot of the things that are up here, our district is already doing, which I found amazing, and that's why I wanted to share this with you. The first thing they said to do this practice is communication. And then we have our Teacher Advisory Council that really uses that communication piece between, obviously, the board, the district, and the teachers. And we also started the quarterly teacher surveys to get more communication and feedback, which I think is very important. The second thing is memos from principals. We already have principal meetings, and they bring that information back to us, the teachers. Central Service leadership. We have really strong leadership at Central Services with Dr. Rollison. She's always in our schools. Molly, she's always in our schools. I think that's really important. Marketing our district. I know we're really improving in this area too. Daniel's been doing a lot with the marketing, and I think that's something else we're going to try to do more of. PLCs. If you're not sure what PLC stands for, it stands for Professional Learning Communities. And I know that was one of the things the board really wanted to focus on this year, and schools are really doing that already. Grading practices was one of the things they also talked about, and we didn't finish it up, but we did the standards-based grading, the book study, and that's being finished this month. So I know we're going to start implementing that soon as well. Standards and content focus, which also goes along with the standards-based grading. And then the district non-negotiables they talked about were like lesson plans and grant writing. And I know that's also a focus of the board this year as well. So I'm just sharing that with you, that a lot of these practices, like, we're already doing in our district. And I just found that so eye-opening and so powerful that we're really headed in the right direction for student achievement. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then the last session that I went to was, not the last session, excuse me, another session that I went to was called Advanced Teaching Roles. And Jenny Bryan actually went to this one as well. And this one is really important. So Advanced Teaching Roles is a pilot program, and what it does is it helps recruit, retain, and reward excellent teachers. A lot of times teachers feel to grow in the profession or to get more pay, they've got to go become an administrator, they've got to become an instructional coach, and then we lose those really good, highly qualified teachers. So what this program does is it allows teachers to stay in their classrooms, but they take on more leadership responsibility, so that way it kind of lessens some of the expectations of our principals and assistant principals, so they can focus on other parts of the school. And then those teachers can then be rewarded, not just financially, but also have that leadership role and share the skills that they have. And what they would do is they would lead different teams of teachers. They could also co-teach. I'm not talking just about exceptional children, it's not that type of co-teaching, but where they actually go into another content. For example, I'm a math teacher, I could go in and teach with another math teacher and share my skills with that teacher. Also, they could do observations, like peer observations. They could do coaching cycles where they work with the instructional coaches, and they would do this throughout the year. The counties, that have done this, they've seen improvement in retention, teacher retention. It also has highlighted their experienced teachers, and it has kept those teachers in that county. And then also, they've seen it's increased pay, and then teachers don't have to leave that county to go to find more pay somewhere else. And then the positive, the really good news is that Brunswick County Schools has already signed up to pilot this program. It just happened the year that COVID hit, so we haven't actually implemented it yet, but we're excited to know that we already have piloted it, and hopefully we can get that out there. So Ms. Bryan and I both are really excited about this. And then the last thing that I wanted to share was just some teacher voice. So I sent out to our toys if they could share some positive things to end this semester with. I kind of sent it out last minute, so not every school is represented, so that was my fault, but these are the ones that were able to respond. So Union Elementary, they said that students are excited to go on field trips with their classes, teachers are working hard to make school fun for the kids, and their Christmas play is back on, and so they're really excited about that. Yes. South Brunswick High School, their wrestling team already has 12 wins this season. Southport Elementary, their Battle of the Books team is doing an awesome job reading all the books and taking the tests on EBOB. They're so proud of their readers and their initiative to read extra to compete. Lincoln Elementary, they're having some of their students that are exiting out of IST due to the great work of the teachers and the interventionists. Miss Biggs made a Buddy the Elf calendar for the month of December for their staff, and so the staff is getting some fun things to do to help boost teacher morale. Brunswick Early College High School, they want to thank Catherine Weeks and Jamie Smith for their help in the school receiving several ATMC and other grants to fund extra activities and programs in several of their departments. Waccamaw, they're doing a great job with their MTSS support of students, meeting them at each level to ensure their success, and kudos to all teachers and staff for working together as a team. And then Cedar Grove Middle, the school as a whole is working together to get the most out of our intervention enrichment block. With the support of our literacy coach, Mrs. Makish, and our math interventionist, Mrs. Griffin, our student engagement has improved from 52% to 78%. And then I just wanted to end by saying thank you for hearing our concerns. I really feel that you guys are receptive, and I can come to you guys about any concerns that the teachers have, and just really working with us to make Brunswick County Schools the best schools for our students and our teachers and our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
All right, now we're on to approval of the minutes. And we'll put these together as a block. So the November 2nd, 2021 regular meeting, November 23rd Operations Committee meeting, November 23rd Curriculum and Policy Committee meeting, and the November 23rd Finance and HR Committee meeting. If I can hear a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Benton,
Second.
second by Ms. Moffett. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next up, we have the consent agenda. And the board, you had a chance to review this before the meeting. If I could have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Benton, second by Mr. Robinson. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next up on action, item number 1 is Senate Bill 654. Dr. Oates.
As required by law, each Board of Education has to vote each month on the action they're going to take regarding masking in the schools. So this is the month of December, and we're tasked to have you vote on whether or not to keep the policy as it is or modify it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to make a slight modification to the current policy, leave the policy in place, but add a 2-week masking once triggered with that 10%, because it's confusing for the administration as we hit the 10%. 2 days later, you might have 3 kids come back, and that puts us under the 10% threshold. Then a day later, another kid goes out. So I would like to just amend our current, that when the trigger happens at 10%, it's a 2-week masking.
All right, any other discussion?
So I have reached out to a couple of school nurses, and there is no data, and I don't even know if this is possible, there's no data to prove that kids who are quarantined are even popping positive. So there's, for me, no reason to send kids home who are not sick. And we are losing tons of instructional time because of kids being sent home that aren't positive.
We don't have a choice in the matter.
Right, so, but I'm just saying, that's frustrating to me, and I don't even know that our 10% should be there, number one. I didn't want that at the last meeting, and then number two, like, why can't we just do 10% of positive cases? Because we only have like 6 at one school. And we have like 60 in quarantine.
I'll amend the motion to do a 10% of positive cases, and then they mask for 2 weeks at that particular building to allow the quarantine procedures to go, the kids in quarantine to clear. That's my motion. To go from a 10% to a 10% positive rate, not the total number of children out, with a 2-week masking if we hit that threshold.
Only if we hit the positive cases.
Only if we hit the positive threshold.
So, Mr. Benton, your motion, your amendment to the current policy is that when the positive COVID cases reach 10% of the school population,
2 weeks.
you want to go to 2-week masking,
Masking, yes, sir.
Included those who didn't have COVID.
as opposed to the
Including the,
10% of total outages, which includes quarantines currently.
correct.
All right, so motion on the table by Mr. Benton is to amend the current policy to remove the quarantine numbers as part of the 10% and to only go back to masking at individual schools when the positive COVID numbers reach 10%
With a 2 week, for 2 weeks.
for 2 weeks.
Correct.
Do I have a second to approve it with Mr. Benton's motion?
Mr. Barger, can I ask one more question?
Mr. Robinson.
Can you clarify this in regard to Robin's question? Mr. Benton answered that, I believe, but the toolkit still dictates with regard to what. I tend to agree with Robin. I mean, it is what it is, but we don't have any role.
Yes, sir. There have been no further amendments to the toolkit since that time.
Okay.
Okay, so my other question is, I've read the toolkit today again. It says we confirm with our local health department that our school is creating a contact tracing plan. So where is the contact tracing plan coming from?
We don't quarantine. So to be clarified, they clarified that in that update from the EPI. We don't quarantine children. We are only allowed to exclude children from the building, which is what we're obligated to do in the toolkit, and there's a general statute attached to that. So people with contagious diseases, we can prohibit them from entering our buildings, our only recourse. The actual quarantine has to be ordered by the health department. So we're not quarantining anybody, putting anybody in quarantine, we're just excluding them from the building when they've been exposed. And that was a legal, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Green, that was what the legal clarification came back from DPI said.
I think that's correct.
Okay.
Do we legally have to follow?
I still think we're splitting hairs here.
We do, or they can charge the board, like they did in Union and several other counties, Lincoln, and they can potentially pull funding.
Well, funding, I mean,
The state controls 3/4 of our budget through the federal and state, because all that's pass-through money at the state, if I'm not mistaken, 3/4? 3/4.
that's tied to money.
Oh, yeah, they tied the money to this. There's money tied to everything. That's been our issue, the whole issue is they've tied all of our money to everything. It's like the SEL money we gave back, we sent back 2 meetings ago because it was tied to the surveys.
Which we're not doing.
Which we're not doing. We returned that money, but that was a chunk of money that pretty much funded that entire program.
Well, let's not follow the 10% then. Let's not do 10% at all.
Yeah, the motion on the table by Mr. Benton is to modify the 10%. Do we have a second for Mr. Benton's motion? Okay, I have no second for Mr. Benton's motion. Do we have any further motions or discussions?
Let's not do a 10% rule. And if masks work, why can't we just, if the kids have been exposed, just put a mask back on them, supposedly, not even send them home?
It's not our choice.
Ms. Moffitt, if I understand your motion is to remove the 10% rule completely, is that correct?
That would be my motion.
Okay, Ms. Moffitt makes a motion to remove the 10% rule completely. Do I have a second? Without hearing a second, we're back to discussion and further motions. Currently on the table, folks, is Senate Bill 654. Our current policy is 10% of students being out. That includes quarantines that go back to masking, as has happened at a couple of schools here in the county. And now we're discussing whether or not we're going to modify that policy or continue with the same policy. And I'm asking for a motion to approve it as it's currently written, or a motion to approve it with modifications.
I would still make the same motion.
So Ms. Moffitt again makes the motion to remove the 10% completely. Do I have a second for Ms. Moffitt's motion?
Dr. Oates, do you have any statistics or numbers for the effectiveness or what our policy has been for the last month?
Well, just looking at what we have on our dashboard, it kind of mirrors what has taken place in the county. There's been an uptick in cases, but I can't accurately attribute that to whether or not it was masking or not. We just came off of a Thanksgiving holiday. I think safe to say that folks, when they were on Thanksgiving break, masks probably were not worn in close quarters, and this may be something that we're seeing. So I can't say with accuracy that wearing the mask is not wearing the mask has caused the uptick, or the option that the board has given.
Because as somebody in the audience mentioned earlier, the numbers now are not a whole lot different than when we were masking. Is that correct?
Well, when the kids leave school, they don't wear masks.
That's correct.
They're all over the place. I have high schoolers that are everywhere, no mask.
We generally see, last year we saw the same thing. We had an uptake 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, everything uptook, and then Christmas, we had a huge bump after New Year's when the kids came back, and then it tends to drop back down again. That's just been what the pattern's been so far with this COVID thing. We have to decide on something. The reason we did the 10% was because it kind of made the health department thought that was a reasonable restriction, that they wouldn't put extra burden on us for compliance, which we've seen them do with the other schools in this district that are not ours. They've had a tremendous amount of paperwork put on them and punitive almost. I don't know if you guys have seen the emails, but they've put punitive procedures in place at the other schools in the county. So that was kind of our reason for, my reason for the 10% was going with what they had recommended. Was I didn't want to bog down our staff any further with having to do personally signed bathroom logs and things being wiped down hourly and turned over to the health department and having that all turned in every day. We're here to educate kids, not keep track of how many times a teacher wiped a door handle in the day. And I was going to go roll with what they said, because honestly, if they crack down on us, we're going to have a lot more regulation, and all of our staff are going to end up having to play COVID police again, like they did during the pandemic, which we don't want to have them doing. We want them focused on education.
Dr. Oates, in your discussion with the school nurses, what degree of difficulty or issue has this caused so far with the modification from last month? What has been the results?
Since we have just recently put masks back on because of the 10%, the issue comes kind of what Mr. Brenton was saying earlier, in that if we're at 10% and then we dip under 10% the next day, it creates confusion with parents having to say, well, today we're wearing masks, but yesterday we weren't because we're going under the 10%. And it creates a little more pressure for us, making sure we got to keep the number. Once it hits that number based on your policy, we then have to go to, that triggers the mask. And it may be 3 days that students are out, they come back, then they're above the 10%, so then we have to send it back home, well, to send a message out and say, well, you can wear a mask, you don't have to wear a mask again. That's
So it's chaos. I'll second Robin's motion.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Robinson. Do I need to read the motion again, or is everybody, all right. All in favor of,
Before we go on with that,
Mr. Lemon?
if that motion passes, the schools that are on, those kids who are out now, what happens with them? Like Bolivia Elementary?
Can't come back. If they come back at day 7, they still have to mask regardless of our masking policy in the school.
It don't change that, right?
Right, that's right. So the masking remains in place. Just because we say there's no masking doesn't mean there's no masking. If your child comes back before day 14, not 10, 14, they have to be masked. So if you get a negative test result on day 7 and your child returns, that child's still in a mask for 7 days and has to be separated at lunch and everywhere else and quarantined off in the lunchroom. Same thing with if they come back on day 10, they have 4 days, they have to wear a mask in school at every second of the day in order to prevent infection for the health department. So that has never changed from the CDC or the local health department. So they're wearing masks either way.
Well, that wasn't my question. We have schools that right now are under the policy that's in place. If that's changed tonight, is that eliminated for those schools?
That should be eliminated for those schools, yes,
Okay.
sir.
But it don't change the content of what the COVID toolkit is.
Right.
Well, I think that, parents out there listening need to understand is this toolkit was written by, Roy Cooper and DPI and North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services and all those people. So another idea is to reach out to your legislators, senators, representatives, because it's written, I read it today, it changes, they update it, really doesn't change a whole lot. There's a lot of shoulds, a lot of more shoulds, some are requirements, but I personally feel like it should be a parent's choice, a child's choice. Putting muzzles on our kids' faces, I don't agree with it.
I'll call for the question.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next up, we have HVAC improvements. Ms. Rutledge.
This is a design build contract for HVAC improvements. Federal funding is available for HVAC improvements that improve air quality and system performance. The board approved a design build procurement method of project delivery at the May 18th, 2021 Operations Committee. A qualifications-based selection was held. Schneider Electric was the selected design build contractor. BCS staff and Schneider Electric staff have been working through project scope, design, and price negotiation. A proposed project for $10,980,000 $1,849 includes significant improvements to Shalote Middle, South Brunswick Middle, North Brunswick High School, South Brunswick High School, Southport Elementary, Supply Elementary. The contract requires the contractor to disclose project cost details, which they did. The details are hard cost, equipment, material, subcontractor labor, engineering and design costs, the cost of insurance and bonds, project management costs, the cost of building commissioning, profit and overhead, and contingency and escalation. The contract also has a provision for an owner-requested change order for a not-to-exceed total amount of $14 million. The additional work which is needed and previously identified will only be done if additional ESSER federal funding becomes available and would only occur at the request of the district. The negotiated costs presented in the attachment, and this is the same attachment that you saw in committee, is reasonable and in line with current industry trends. Staff monitors the cost of construction as part of our routine work, and as you know, construction costs are continuing to rise. The cost of mechanical work is exceeding price at a faster rate than most other trade areas. This contract is a guaranteed not-to-exceed price for the work contained in the project scope, no change orders. Part of the project will occur in the summers of 2021, some in the summer of 2022. Some work in unoccupied areas can occur while school's in session. To ensure the district meets all the requirements of federal funding, staff requested a formal waiver and approval of using design build as the preferred method of project delivery from DPI. DPI administers ESSER funds for the school system. DPI approved the waiver for non-competitive procurement. Since that time, the General Assembly, or at least one chamber of the Assembly, has passed a design build method of project delivery as an approved method. So if other funds become available, we won't have to request a waiver. So the recommendation tonight is the staff requests the board approve the attached design build contract with Snyder Electric for $10,980,849.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Benton, second by Mr. Robinson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, discussion and announcements from the superintendent.
Mr. Chairman, and board members, just two quick announcements I wanted to bring to your attention. One of them has been made already, and that is the classified job fair that will be held here tomorrow from 4 to 7. It is an attempt to recruit many more classified employees in the areas of child nutrition, some of the teacher assistants that were mentioned, bus drivers, all classified employees. That's tomorrow here at the coast from 4 to 7. And I'm told from HR that there have been several people that have already pre-registered for this event, not even to mention those that will just come without registration. So that's a wonderful thing for us. And lastly, just to let you know that winter performances, as Ms. O'Hara did say, they are back. They have started this week. There are many going on across the county, whether it's choral concerts, band concerts, art displays, that type of thing, but I will provide each of you a complete schedule of where they're taking place and the dates so that you can attend as you see fit. You should have that by tomorrow at the latest.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to go into closed session for personnel? Motion by Mr. Benton.
Second.
Second by Mr. Levin. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
As amended, this is so moved. Mr. Benton makes a motion to approve the personnel list as amended, seconded by Mr. Robinson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Do you have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Lemon, seconded by Mr. Robinson. All in favor, say aye. Aye.